she was predisposed to be very fond of him, to love him. And I think it was a real shock for her when he began treating her discourteously after he and Meghan got together. They were beside themselves because Meghan was running roughshod over everybody, and nobody could figure it out. Nobody could figure out why Harry was so was just folding at every turn. And that was when I thought, oh my gosh, this whole thing is beginning to unravel.
So, what we have here is a rather explosive and emotional deep dive into what went on behind the palace walls during Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's chaotic royal saga. Specifically, how much Queen Elizabeth II reportedly suffered because of it. This isn't your usual polite royal family chatter. It's a portrait of heartbreak, frustration, and disbelief inside Buckingham Palace as the Queen watched her once-beloved grandson spiral into disobedience and disrespect, all allegedly under Meghan's influence.
Developing today, shocking new revelations about exactly how devastated Queen Elizabeth II was about Prince Harry's behaviour towards her and Meghan Markle's appalling actions in the royal family, and the fact that indeed the late Queen's reign, or at least the final days of her reign, and the final days on earth, were significantly impacted by the immature, by the selfish, and by the completely inappropriate behaviour of the grandson that she once supported so thoroughly and his new wife. Now, we're learning much more about this, of course, after the words from beyond the grave were revealed from Lady Elizabeth Anson, the late Queen Elizabeth II's close friend and cousin. They spoke on the phone every week until her death in 2020. And Sally Bedell-Smith revealed these really shocking allegations in her Substack. But she's now given a fascinating interview alongside Dickie Arbiter, who was also previously close to the late Queen Elizabeth II, worked as her communications secretary at Buckingham Palace for many years, some of the most fascinating years of the reign when there was lots of tension over Princess Diana. And in this interview, Sally Bedell-Smith reveals that Lady Elizabeth Anson had said that the Queen was such a fan of Prince Harry, so it was a big, big shock to her what happened, especially, by the way, given she had given Harry and Meghan these very significant jobs.
Let's start at the heart of it, the Queen's heartbreak. According to Sally Bedell-Smith, one of the most respected royal biographers around, the Queen had always been extremely fond of Harry. She loved him dearly. Lady Elizabeth Anson, a cousin and one of the Queen's closest confidants who spoke to her every week until her death, described Harry as the Queen's star.
Thing that Liza Anson said to me, and she said, the Queen had been extremely fond of Harry. She was very, very proud of his military service. And she said to me, when the Queen delegates, the star is Harry. So she was predisposed to be very fond of him, to love him. And I think it was a real shock for her when he began treating her discourteously after he and Meghan got together. Nevertheless, she was still, despite all of that, she was still willing to give Meghan and Harry significant roles in the royal family, especially in the Commonwealth, where Meghan's biracial heritage could be a real help. And they really didn't appreciate that. They took on the roles and they didn't do very much with them, as they didn't do very much with anything that was given them to carry out their duties and to serve.
And she really couldn't understand why Prince Harry had changed so significantly, and that this dude who she had supported and backed so much actually ended up hurting her beyond belief in the final days of her reign.
Well, you mentioned Harry in the military. Katie Nichols she talks about her, Katie Nichol talks about her meetings with Lady Elizabeth Anson in Vanity Fair. And she said she couldn't understand how Harry, who had loved his military career and had been devoted to duty, could change the way he did. In this conversation happened in 2020. It's so sad that at her age, having to manage the most amazing reign, it has been sullied. He has hurt her beyond belief. And also, to your point, Sally, back to your notes, Harry went on the radio, I think shortly after Christmas too, and said Meghan didn't really have a close family, or
Yeah.
Meghan had, oh my gosh. And of
I mean,
course her
it was,
family's going to rage.
yeah. And there was no, it was so gratuitous. He didn't need to say that. Obviously, they had a lovely time, and she was, she was welcome. That's the thing. You know, Lady Elizabeth's initial reaction, I think the Queen's initial reaction, they thought she would be very good news. I was, I was in this weird position because I was hearing these things from Lady Elizabeth in the run up to the wedding, and then I had to do some commentary on it. Obviously, it was nothing that I was going to speak about because everybody was in. I mean, at the wedding, everybody was in love with Meghan, and in the months after that, it was only in the following fall when I was in England and I was at a dinner party, and there were people there who knew Harry and William very well, and they were beside themselves because Meghan was running roughshod over everybody, and
Mm.
and nobody could figure it out. Nobody could figure out why Harry was so was just folding at every turn, and that was when I thought, oh my gosh, this whole thing is beginning to unravel. That was the autumn of 2018. And I think 2 weeks later, the Fab Four broke up and the Royal Foundation broke and, was cut in two. But they were sort of dumbstruck. And these were people who were very discreet, but they couldn't, they said, Harry, as one of them said, Harry doesn't know what hit him. But he was totally besotted. And as Liza said, he's not very strong, and she is.
Yeah.
Wow. Angela Levin, our royal mastermind, also Prince Harry's biographer, really wanted to get your reaction to this because, of course, as I've previously said, I think the words of Lady Elizabeth Anson mean a lot in terms of the historic record when it comes to the revolting way that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle left the Queen feeling. And Angela, that's what a lot of people will never forgive.
He was a fun one, the cheeky one, the one she could laugh with. And she was proud of him, his military service, his energy, his warmth with people. What's perhaps most haunting about all of this is that when we look back at photos from Harry and Meghan's 2018 wedding, the Queen's stiff expression, her pursed lips, we now know we weren't imagining it. She was miserable.
No, I don't blame them. I agree with everything that's been said. I had a long talk to her at the wedding, actually. She's a marvelous woman, and she was sort of slightly worried about things even then. But yes, it was a sudden change, wasn't it? Sort of after he'd had his wedding and everything that was there, Meghan had got what she wanted, so she could be nagging him and awful, and she wants to kill it. She wants to kill the the whole royal family. I think that's the point. She wants to take over. Harry did go into his mother and say that it wasn't right to have Catherine doing that. Meghan would be much better. She knows much more. She's a working woman. She's got herself a good career. And I think after that, he was nagged and nagged and nagged. And I think that he just lost his feeling that he had to behave himself. I mean, the fact that he could have been so dreadful to his grandmother is unbelievable because she did actually adore him. They loved to do jokes together. They had a very similar way what made them laugh. And she couldn't do that anymore. But one of the things that's just disgusting is that they wanted to have the Archbishop of Canterbury taking the wedding and doing all that. But actually, he wasn't supposed to do that in this particular place where they were going to have the wedding. There's lots of places where the Queen decides who does it. And he didn't even tell her. He just chose this. And was very religious, and she doesn't like to be pushed out of the way as if what she wants doesn't have any meaning. And he wanted this particular person to do it, and he couldn't care less what she felt. Now, how can you do that with your grandmother? How can you do that? I mean, it's just beyond possibility, isn't it? And to see how unhappy she is, because you can read it on her face, but he couldn't care less about that. Everything went because Meghan didn't want him to have anything to do with his family. She's a killer. You know, she doesn't like anything that she doesn't want. She tries to destroy. We've seen it so many times already. Friends, people she's employed, everyone. But the thing is, people are very, very scared of her. It's quite interesting that they are still really scared of her. And perhaps, the Queen herself, not to be scared of her, but that it would be so rude to actually say, what are you doing? This is my home and you're going to obey me. I mean, I think she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do it for Harry's sake, and she wouldn't want to blow up the whole thing. But it's just too painful for words, isn't it, actually, when she was so ill and Prince Philip was so ill, and then she just went on being
disgusting.
thoroughly, yes.
It's disgusting, and it is unforgivable. What was interesting too, Angela, is they went back before the wedding and made the point, which I know we've made many times before, but of course it's very interesting hearing from their point of view, which is that Meghan was just impossible to help. Watch this.
And I've also heard that the Queen was hoping that Sophie could be somewhat of a mentor to Meghan, and Meghan at one point said, "No, I don't need her. I've got Prince Harry," which was, do you? I mean, he's not. You didn't even know like the national anthem and all these in certain protocol, because clearly Prince Harry didn't step up and introduce you to these things or open those doors for you.
Nobody could mentor Meghan. Impossible. She's a law unto herself.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't listen to anybody. You've got to look at the woman. She was an actress in a soap. The soap was coming to an end. She was being written out of it. Hollywood didn't gallop a path to her front door to offer her parts. But hey, Harry came along, and my goodness, this guy's got a title. He's probably got money. She's a lonely woman, or a woman alone, and they got married. She was a divorced woman. Why did she get married in a white dress? A divorced woman, why did she wear a veil?
Well, indeed. And Angela, I mean, Dickie Arbiter, he's obviously speaking on his behalf there, but that is absolutely how the late Queen felt. I reported it right at the time when I first broke Tiaragate. She never understood why Meghan wanted to wear a veil. But of course, it feeds into a wider picture, doesn't it? Which is that she just could not be helped. She was never going to listen. She was never going to be mentored. I mean, why would she reject help from Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, for example? Why?
She was hurt, and she was angry, not because she was unkind, not because she was out of touch, but because she'd extended love, trust, and opportunity to her grandson and his wife, and they repaid her with arrogance and disregard. And in the final months of her life, as she faced the loss of her husband, Prince Philip, and her own declining health, that pain reportedly still lingered. So yes, this isn't just another royal gossip piece. It's a reminder of how deeply personal all of this was for the Queen. Behind the palaces and protocols, there was a grandmother, a woman who adored her grandson and couldn't understand why he turned away from her. A woman who believed in service and sacrifice and watched Harry and Meghan throw both out the window for celebrity and self-promotion. And perhaps that's the saddest part. The Queen gave him everything. Her blessing, her trust, her patience. And in return, she got distance, disrespect, and pain. By the time she passed, those close to her say she had made peace with many things. But not that. Not Harry. Not the boy who'd once made her laugh and then broke her heart. It's no wonder royal insiders still call it the greatest disappointment of her reign.